Uh-oh, we're broke down. Now what? Welcome back to Just Bussin'. Today, we're just gonna do a little visual inspection on a bunch of things that you can easily check by yourself, and maybe a few pointers and tricks that you can figure out along the way. Lots of people work on their buses for a very long time, and then when it comes time to get on the road and travel, things don't go as planned, right? So lots of this stuff is easy to check. We're just gonna kind of do a visual inspection on a bunch of stuff, and yeah, let's go get started. So at this point, I guess I would start with easy things that you can check by yourself and just visually look around and see what you can find, right? The engine oil dipstick is right here on this. It's a 24 valve Cummins. Fuel filter is right here. This is the canister. It has a cartridge style that goes in from the top. I've done a video on that, changing the filter as well as bleeding the air out of the system if you happen to get air in the injection system, how to get it started again. Steering, this is easy. This is the input from the driver up here, comes down to the steering box, steering arms. Nothing here should not move when you turn the steering wheel, right? You can have a little bit of input here. You can see this universal joint rotates as you turn it. You want to check this universal joint. Make sure when you turn this part, this yoke here turns as well, so nothing is broken in here. You can look for silver filings, metal stuff coming apart in here too. And this input changes to the sector and gear style box, I think this is. So when you turn this, this rotates through this link arm to this arm to the steering. That's pretty easy. You can also just wiggle stuff around with your hand. I know this stuff's fairly big and clumsy, but if you can move anything by hand that feels out of place, then there is something wrong. Shocks, you can see the top here has rubber bushings. If these rubber bushings are gone out of here, or there's oil leaking here, time to replace the shocks and do both sides at the same time. Don't just do one. These are the kingpins. I don't know if anybody has really paid attention to those because they're not really a severe wearing item, as long as you grease the top, the upper greaser, and there's one on the bottom down here as well. You can check these by jacking the bus up on the axle right there. Lift the bus up a little bit off the ground, and you can just wiggle this tire back and forth, as well as put a bar underneath, and you can feel if there's any play up and down in these kingpins. Those should be tight. This particular bus has hydraulic disc brakes on it. It does not have air brakes, so it's a pretty simple system. All there is a master cylinder here. This is the fluid level in the master cylinder. They are separated. One half of this is the front brakes, one half is the rear brakes. So if you happen to break a line on one side, you have the other end braking all the time anyways to safely get stopped. Yeah, this system is fairly simple. All you do is have steel lines, hoses going down to the frame here, converts to the flexible line going to the disc brake caliper right here, right there. This other line is for the ABS sensor in the wheel, because this bus does have anti-lock brakes. So if you're coming up to an abrupt stop and you slam on the brakes, one wheel will want to skid. The ABS will not let it skid, so that it still rotates and you have maximum braking efficiency and road contact with the tires. If your ABS light is on, it's most likely one of these sensors, or this little cable here is broken, because it is just two little wires in here. Pretty easy to look at visually. Lots of this stuff is just looking around. You do this every day, every week, whatever. Things you can see, you'll get used to seeing things that are out of place right away. These are the front leaf springs. This bus only has two leaves in it. Sometimes they can break right here or there. They go back there, and that's the attachment point back there at the spring shackle. These front are solidly mounted through a rubber bushing though, not solid, but rubber bushing. Power steering reservoir has a dipstick here, says maximum oil hot, so this should be checked when it's hot. Engine oil, I showed you that already. Let's look for leaks and stuff. This bus has a little, or this engine has a little oil leak right here somewhere. Pretty minor, but it can turn into something a little major, so just keep eye on things like that, right? Look for hoses rubbing and stuff like that. You can see on this one, I've already put some hose wrap on this one because this power steering line was rubbing on this corner here. So I put some wrap on here and zip tied it, so it should stop that. This one is good. This one has separators on it. Cooling fan, it'll rotate when it's cold, and you should do that. Make sure that it's solid. This is a viscous coupler in here, so when it's hot, this will drive the fan. Radiator, of course, right here, upper radiator hose. Make sure there's no cuts or nicks or rubs on these, because that can get nasty in a hurry. What else? Oh, you can see I've wrapped this one here as well. Put some hose wrap on there and tied it so it can't rub on this other hose anymore. As I said, 24 valve Cummins. These are great engines for sure. One other thing over here, this is the grid heater, and it says right on here, warning, do not use ether, because this is a heating element. It's a grid heater, and if you use ether while this is still hot to try and get your bus going, if your bus is hard to start, really bad things can happen. You're gonna have a little explosion in there, and you're gonna have some expensive bill here. So this grid heater, this preheats before your engine starts. That's the little light on the dash that says do not start or wait to start, one of them. So you wait for that to start, to light to go out in the dash, and then this heater stops for a little bit, and then it provides the warmed up air that goes into the intake, into the engine. The connections for that are right here. So if your engine is hard to start and you have one of these grid heaters, check the connections first. There's another one right here, the ground connection right here. You can see this goes right to the engine block, right to there. So that's a ground connection. And these two are power, and this will cycle on and off when you first start the bus. You'll see the alternator gauge go up and down a little bit, or you hear a funny noise like the engine is powered down a little bit. That's because the grid heater comes on. It cycles on and off for whatever, 5 or 10 seconds. So it'll go on, the needle will go down a little, and then it'll flicker back up when it shuts off. So it'll do that for a little while till the bus is up to temperature. Well, battery went dead, so I hope you've seen all that about the grid heater here. As it says, do not use ether. Do not use ether. So anything else from this side? This is the intercooler. This is that the charge air from the turbocharger goes in. Comes out, goes into the cooler on the other side, comes out of here, goes into the intake right here. You want to check this hose, make sure that none of the rubber is cracked or separated, especially along where the clamps are, right there. Make sure it's not rubbing on anything, because if this hose has a crack in it, then you're sucking in dirty air that's unfiltered, and you don't want that either. Okay, I think that's everything over here. We'll come back to the batteries later. Let's go to the other side. This is the air filter. Again, this comes right out of the turbocharger right there. So you want to check these lines, make sure everything's good. These are rubber. Make sure there's nothing cracked, broken, none of that. Because, like I said, you'll be sucking in dirty air. This is a filter restriction indicator. This little yellow plunger in here. Right now, it's right at the bottom here. says push to reset, so you just push this and the plunger moves down. As the air filter gets more plugged and there's more restriction, this little yellow plunger goes up here until it gets time, says change filter. But you probably don't want to wait that long. You want to keep an eye on this, I guess, daily or weekly or whatever, depending on what conditions you're driving in. If it gets up to here and you need to continually reset it, I'd look at your filter and at least blow it out. Make sure that it's clean. Yeah, that's the intercooler right there. It's in front of the radiator. You can see by that. So it can easily get plugged with, not plugged probably, but bugs and debris and stuff can sit in there and restrict the flow to the radiator and that intercooler. So if you're having heating problems, you want to check that, as well as check between there, down there, make sure there's no debris sitting between the radiator and the intercooler. And yeah, visually check all the lines, hoses, everything. And you can see over here I've put this wrap on here because this hose was rubbing on there a little, as well as here these battery cables to the alternator, they were rubbing a little bit, so I put some wrap on there. This valve here is a heater valve, shuts the flow off to the heaters in the cab, as well as that guy right over there somewhere with the yellow handle, wherever that is, right there. Yeah, that's the other one. And you can see the brake assembly over there, Hydromax brake booster it's called. It's a pretty good system. The air brake system on lots of buses is great as well, except that it has more moving parts in the whole brake system. Has a brake valve, air compressor, air tanks, treadle valve that you put your foot on, other relay valves, brake chambers, brake shoes, brake drums, S-cams, S-cam bushing, slack adjusters, all the air hoses that are associated with that. So the air brake system is more complicated. Yeah, it has more holding capacity or more stopping capacity in most cases, but it is more maintenance. The hydraulic brake system was adequate when the school bus was new, so it was probably adequate then. It's probably still is now, right? As long as the components are in good working order, the brake pads and the rotors, make sure those are good. You can inspect them from inside. They'll last for a long time too. Coolant. Here's the coolant level right here in this coolant overflow tank. Make sure that you use the correct coolant that your engine manufacturer suggests, because Cummins, Caterpillar, Mercedes, International, pretty sure they all use different coolant, because some have wet sleeves in the engine, some have dry sleeves in the engine. They have different additives, different corrosion protection. So make sure you're using the correct coolant for your engine manufacturer. That is very important. The engine oil filter is right there on this 24 valve Cummins. You can see that. Pretty easy to access. Little turbocharger right there. This bus is all factory, has had nothing aftermarket done to it. Is that pretty much everything in there? Yeah, we did spring shocks, kingpins, grease zerks, all that stuff, alternator. Okay, let's look at this tire. This bus, we've had it for 3 years, so it is sitting in our backyard over there for a while. We drive it once in a while, it's insured, all that stuff. So the tires, I don't know if you can exactly see that, wherever that is, but there's a date right there. It says 03/17. You see that? Maybe. So these tires were made in the 3rd week of 2017. That's how you read those. 2017, 17 being the year. So these are about 6 years old, which is a shame because they have lots of tread left on them. Lots of tread. These are really good shape as for tread, but You can see just from sitting these, let's go to the other side maybe. You can see these are starting to weather check right there. See them cracks right there? All along there too. That's from just sitting out here and being dry, not being used, flexing in the weather, all that stuff. So at this point, I guess I would start looking for new front tires. Hopefully I can find some in this size. If not, we will go up a size. These are 10R22.5 radial tires. 11R22.5 tires are more readily available than these, so we may upsize a little bit, but we'll see. Checking your tires is pretty important, because the front tires, you definitely don't want a problem with the front. If you have whoa, bug landed on me there. If you have a problem with the back, you at least have two tires, so if you get one flat tire, the other one will hold the bus up until you get safely off to where you need to go at a reduced speed, obviously. Whereas front tires, if you have a front tire problem when you're driving down the road, you're probably not going to be very happy with the end result, and it's going to scare the poop out of you. So look after your front tires for sure, absolutely. So I guess, yeah, at this point we're looking for tires. I only seen that today when I started looking around here, and that's why we're doing this, right? You find things that you weren't aware of before. The lug nuts, these are just nut covers here. They come off. This bus has had longer studs put in because we changed from the steel wheels to the aluminum wheels, so we have longer studs. This takes a 33mm socket. If you don't have the means to do the tire repair stuff and all that all by yourself, then don't even attempt it. If you can't retorque these nuts to 450 foot-pounds, it says right on the nut right there. I don't know if you can see it or not. Right there somewhere. 450 foot-pounds. So if you can't torque these back to 450 pounds accurately, don't do it. Let somebody else do it. This hub here, this is an oil-filled hub. It says right on here, maximum oil level is right there at this ring. Minimum oil level is at this ring, so you should be able to see the oil between there and there. And if you're changing these hubs, they're super easy. They're cheap. They're like $15, $18, something like that. Comes with a plastic hub piece, new bolts, new gasket, new rubber plug here. So they're easy and they're well worth it, and that gives you an opportunity just to change the oil right there. So if this is leaking, chances are this plug is leaking, or the gasket. This has an inner seal on the hub as well. Down in there you'll see oil spraying around in here if that hub is leaking. So this takes gear oil. I think it's 85-90 gear oil. And like I said, that's the level, that's the minimum level right there, and that's the maximum level right there. So you're looking at this, the bottom of it, not the top. Don't fill it to the top here. The level indicator is at the bottom. Yeah, and when you're filling this, make sure you check it for a while, let it sit for a while, because this oil will run through the bearings, through the roller bearings in here, and it takes a little while to fill up that cavity. So you'll fill it up to probably here, and you'll, next time you look at it, if you don't check it in half an hour, it could be right out of here. So do this slowly, check it a few times, and once it settles in the proper area, then you're probably done. Has a drain plug if you want to drain the oil and change it. What else we got here? We did tires. Wheels, if you're going to jack it up and check the kingpins, make sure you put chalk blocks under the back wheels, as well as safety stands, all that stuff. You don't want this thing rolling away or doing anything silly while you're working on it, because yeah, again, bad things can happen. What else we got up here? Yeah, I guess generally just look for hose rubs, oil, little things like that, right? Let's go over here to the batteries. We have 2 batteries in here. These are fairly new. They both have battery condition indicators on them. See this little green light right there? It's pretty cool, hey? So that tells you the condition of the battery. When it's green, it's good. When it's some other color, it's probably not good. So these even though it's 2 batteries, these are still 12 volts to the system of the bus. When you connect the positive to the positive, that adds the cranking amps, leaves the voltage alone at 12. So negative to negative to the bus, positive to positive to the bus, that's 12 volts. If you had a 24 volt system, which buses, I don't think any bus has, but lots of construction equipment has, it's positive to negative, and then you run this positive to your system and this negative to your system, and that adds the volts. So that would be 24 volts, but don't ever do that on a bus unless you're absolutely certain it's 24 volts, which it probably isn't anyways. It'll be 12 volts. So these, like I said, these batteries are fairly new. I have a voltmeter on here, which is a handy tool to have. You can see right now this is 12.7 volts. I'm going to go start the bus, and when I start it, this voltage will go down a little bit, and then it should increase to somewhere around 14 volts. That's a good way to check and see if your alternator is functioning properly. Whatever this voltage is, when you start the bus, it should be more than that. It should stay more than that. If it does not increase here, there's something wrong with your alternator. Lots of electronic stuff. If you have bad batteries, lots of electronic stuff does not like low voltage, like below 9.6 or 10 volts or something like that. So if you have low voltage or not so good batteries already, and you're trying to start your bus and it won't start, it could likely be because some of the electronic components are not getting the correct voltage to supply the signal to all the components that says, hey, I'm happy, let's start. And it'll say, hey, I'm not happy, I'm not starting. So make sure your batteries are in good condition. Connections are good. Connections are clean like these. Everything is happy in here. This has a room for a 3rd battery in here, so we could go negative, 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 and then we would have 3 times the 930 cranking amps to start the bus, which would be really good. But we only have 2, so 2 works very well. These batteries are probably 2 years old. They've sat outside and 0 problems in the winter time. As long as they're charged up in the winter, fully charged in the winter, they won't be a problem. They'll just sit there and they'll be happy. Don't have a good battery and a bad battery. Oh look, there's the boss. Huh? Don't have a good battery and a bad battery because the bad battery will drag down the good battery. So let's go start this and see what this alternator reading says on the voltmeter. Oh, so I have this camera set up over here. You can see it says 12.7. I'm going to go start the bus, and we're going to see what that gauge does. You're going to see what it does. Oh, hey boss.
Hello there.
Hello. We're broke down, now what?
We're not broke down.
Oh, but if we were,
I have you.
we'd be able to fix it.
That's correct.
Most likely, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're just doing a little walkthrough here, little visual inspection of a bunch of stuff.
Good.
And I was just going to go inside and start the bus.
Oh, well, you should probably do
And we're
that
checking
then.
the alternator. But
Or
hey,
I can go start the bus.
since it's a good thing we talk like the same and we're on the same wavelength.
Well, let me go do that for you.
Okay, you go do it. Here, take this with you and just show them the gauge, the alternator gauge, and talk about that stuff and the wait to start light and that stuff.
Oh,
Okay.
Well, we'll see what we can do. Well, my stuff. It's kind of warm out here today.
So you can see this says 12.7. She has the other camera. And we'll see together, see what it goes down to. Should go down, like I said, a little bit. Might be hard to see because of the way the gauge is. 12.6. She turned the key on.
Alrighty. Well, when we're doing the start, we turn the key on and it makes a lot of racket. And we wait till that engine light goes out and it appears that it's now ready to start. Just like that, because it's nice and warm out. It starts super easy today. And then we just watch for the oil gauge to go up and the battery gauge to go up. It all looks pretty good. The oil pressure's go up. That is about it. Not much to see here.
12.5, so that means the grid heater is on. 12.3 when it was cranking. Now it's gone up to 13.9. So that means the alternator is charging the battery. There's 14. Somewhere around 14 is good to see. This will always read higher than what the battery voltage is when the batteries are just sitting. But it's constantly charging. It will not overcharge them. So we got up to 14.1. So that's good. That shows you the alternator is working properly. So that's another easy thing to do that you don't need to have someone else do for you. Just go buy yourself a cheap voltmeter. Bought this one when it was on sale. I think it was $30 or something, $25. Yeah. Multi-functions. You need this on volts DC, not volts AC. So yeah, we have that done now, and proper voltage. You hear how nice she runs, hey? These Cummins engines, best engines on the planet. Yes, used in many applications for a long time. And variations of them still out there in brand new equipment.
You can hear him out there yattering. Look, he's
There she is. Hello.
talking about stuff.
Yeah, I've got a rag in case I'm getting my hands dirty.
Oh,
Because we're only visually inspecting things. We're
that's
not
correct.
touching things.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, we're done
Does
in
it work?
here. It works.
Did the gauge go up?
Yes, everything but the water gauge and the I don't think there's anything else to show here.
Oh, there she is. Hello. Yeah, I've got a rag in case I'm getting my hands dirty. Because we're only visually inspecting things. We're not touching things. Okay. Does it work? Did the gauge go up? So let's go over here to the back tires. Again, they'll have date codes on them as well. And yeah, this has longer studs on it. Tire on the side of the tire, manufacturer says 105 psi. The specs in the bus on the information sheet says 95 psi. So I would run these at 95 psi because this is never fully loaded to use the full potential of the tire capacity. A nice 6-inch exhaust. Yeah! Beauty! You guys, you know how to check headlights, brake lights, tail lights, reverse lights, all that stuff. That's easy peasy. So I think we're probably done here. Again, lots of this. Whoa, back up. Again, lots of this stuff you can check by yourself. It's easy. You don't need to be anyone special or have any special tools or nothing. You can do quite a bit of this stuff just by learning from day to day, and you'll know what to check. You'll know what to check the more often you do it. See? That is the view going down the road, or not the view going down the road, but the view you do not want to have to see when you're out on your vacation or out trying to get somewhere or have fun. But this you should do every morning. Check the stuff yourself, and yeah, go from there. Learn it. That's the thing. Learn it. It's easy peasy. Okay, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and please subscribe, share it with your friends, do all that stuff. Help us grow this channel. We will learn some more together. We'll do a whole bunch together and have some fun and do stuff, right? It's the main thing. Do stuff and learn stuff. So let's go see the boss, and thanks for coming. See ya.
Bye. Nice to see you.
I think when I went over to this other side over here, we talked about the tires and the tire date and the weather checking on here. Tires, the tire manufacturers recommend changing tires between 6 and 10 years, no longer than 6 and 10-year-old tires. So that's a good thing to probably abide by. I know tires are expensive, but like I said, the front tires are pretty important. You want to look after those for sure. And if there's any doubt or it doesn't feel right that they're on here, then don't have them on there and don't drive till you get new ones. We want to be safe and be able to get to where we're going, right? So yeah, tires, front tires especially, very important. Hey, one more thing I forgot, two more things I forgot to mention. Fan belt, right there. It's a multi-ribbed belt. Check the condition of that. You don't want any cracking or minimal. They will last a long time even when they have cracks in them, but just pay attention to it. And let me get down from here. Transmission oil dipstick right here. That is to be checked when the engine and the transmission oil are warm, and when the transmission is either in park or neutral. Check that oil. Should be anywhere above the add, and make sure you use the correct specified oil in there as well. So yeah, transmission oil dipstick right there, fan belt over there somewhere. Now I'm done. Thanks for coming. Bye.